give it up, you can't get it back. Or if you do get it back, it's not gonna be easy, and it's gonna be even more expensive to get it back.
In all fairness, and Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, in the research that I've done, and I've been on the budget committee since 2000. Yeah, really. Yeah, since 2000, I think it was 19 when I retired. The average is 65% of your budget is school and 35 to town. But our school is running 62%, and what the town is diligently working on to save money, it should be applauded. It's hard work to get a budget to stay and meet all the needs of a community. So I would just like to see my community work more together instead of all of them.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one more thing. You mentioned serving on the budget committee, and I served on the budget committee for several years, quite a while ago. I think the last time was probably 10 or 12 years ago. And a lot of the town budget and the school budget is driven by mandates in state statute. So you have state statutes, state mandates, federal mandates that dictate what you need to do. They don't dictate the cost of that item, but they dictate so many things that we have to follow that mandate, and we have to spend the money to fulfill that mandate. So in both budgets, there's very little, overall, very little wiggle room. There was one year, I don't remember when it was, probably around 2008, when the economy was bad. We looked for every penny that we could cut out of the town budget. And at that time, the town budget, I think, was around $900,000. And I think we were able to cut $10,000 or $15,000 out of that budget. Everything else was, again, the federal government and the state, they don't dictate the cost. But we had to fulfill those obligations. So we had to spend the money to fulfill those obligations. And of course, there's inflation, which affects all of our checkbooks, and it affects the towns and the schools just as well. So with my job and the different towns I've worked in, every year I have to come up with a budget. And every year, it's a battle trying to keep the budget reasonable when all of our costs are going up. And some of our costs, like for the technology that I use, the different programs I use, even for those, the cost goes up tremendously from year to year. They might go up to, say, a $3,000 program. It jumps up to $3,700 the next year. So it's a battle every year to try to keep those budgets reasonable. And again, a lot of it's just mandated that we have to spend. There's no way around it.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and we'll conclude the meeting with giving each candidate an opportunity to present their final pitch to the voters and address any topics that did not come up tonight they would like to discuss. So, Bill, do you have anything you'd like to go with?
I'll just say I got a short statement right here. Hopefully we'll get a short statement. There we go. Whoever goes to it, whether it be the selectmen or the budget committee or school board, there's always a lot to learn. I'm hoping myself to learn from a lot of people who served on it in the past. I'm going to put Pat Lynch here out on the board right there. Your husband, John, you probably saw him learning all the time right there, whether he liked to learn it or not, but he learned it right there. That's part of it right there. So, and like was said just a few moments ago, we got to think about terminology and everything. Laws, mandates, required RSAs, statutes. There are some things we have to continue on dealing with, whether we like it or not, whether it be the budget committee or school board or the selectmen. It's just there, and we're going to have to work with it right there. There are so many, where did it go right there? My hope over the next year is to find out what those required items are on the budgets right there. That's just a curiosity part on mine. where it came up on, where I thought of it mostly was when I was listening to the budget for the school board right there. A lot of those things you start hearing there, and it hurts seeing all the numbers going right there. But a lot of those things are required. We have no choice to do it, but we have to deal with it. I know being on the fire department, there's certain things we had to do every year. Test ladders, test pumps, test the tanks on them, test the gauges, the parts where everything goes together. You have to test it right there. That's part of it. You just have to think about that. I know probably in the highway department and other things, Harold would probably know more than anything about the highway department right there, but there are things you just have to do right there. And we just don't like it. Two of the things that come to mind that we have that's difficult to deal with right there is the town's ambulance service for one, and the school bus service right there. I apologize if I get anybody upset about saying those two things there, but that's just about what we have to do with. They're the only game in town right there to deal with, like the school bus right there. There's only one company that does it in this area. So we have to work with them, whether we like it or not, right there. Same thing with the ambulance service. We've only got the one ambulance. Franklin does not want to service us right there. Then New Hampton, they got plenty of their own stuff to go right there. The next closest after that would be Bridgewater, but they're not a manned station. What do you call it? Stewart Ambulance Service out of Meredith. There's just nobody else, so we have to deal with Bristol no matter whether we like it or not. And I heard something on one of the last meetings I was on, and it just triggered my interest right there, is to learn how to make some kind of a emergency type buffer fund for each department right there. Slush fund that we all have on, hopefully we all have on our budgets right there. Put it for the departments, how to, what it is and how to put it together right there. I believe the word I heard it called is reserve fund balance right there. Exactly there. I want to get more information on it right there. But basically, so that's designed so if anything falls apart unexpectedly, let's say the school right here, I hope it doesn't happen here, but the furnace blows into pieces right there. They're going to have to find the money to do it quickly. Maybe this reserve fund balance might help the situation right there. So basically just to see if we can make the town operate more efficiently, not with just paying less money for it. Thank you.
Closing, there's been a lot of upheaval in the fire department. I know there's still a couple ex-firefiremen here. It seems to be on the mend. I know there's still some animosity there. I would like to see that, get that resolved and move forward in a positive manner. It seems to be sort of going that way now. I know there's some opposition still from some people. Can't make everybody happy all the time. We have, highway department has a few projects that they want to do. I know Greg said he wanted to have some. As of right now, we don't have any way to hold loggers or excavation guys totally responsible if they damage our infrastructure, other than going after them one by one, which Greg did do with somebody right after Bunker Hill was paved. They damaged the edge of the road. He went after them, got the money. We shouldn't have to go after every single one and keep that much of an eye on it. If something happens, there should be a bond that that person put up that says, if I damage the road, it will be covered. That's one thing I would definitely work to do if I was a selectman. I'm good at solving problems, seeing things from other people's viewpoint, and trying to make the best decision possible. I would definitely work with any department heads or people of a department to try to make things better for everybody in Hill, not just a select few. Can't, like I said before, you can't make everybody happy all the time, but you do your best.
I was going to end on a sour note talking about the ambulance, and I'm glad Bill brought it up. It's a real accomplishment when you think about it that we've lowered our budgetary expenditures with what happened to the ambulance this year. It more than doubled, and Bristol is now saying it's going to more than double again next year. Solutions are few and far between, other than starting a new ambulance corps here in Hill, which I I think would be quite expensive. Maybe when we hire a policeman, we can ask him if he would take an EMT course, if he would help staff an ambulance. I know it's doubling up, but we need to find a way to at least get ourselves out of the orbit of Bristol, because at Bristol at this point, I don't even want to give you the number that they gave us on the budget committee for what's going to happen to the ambulance expense next year, but it's going to more than double the $66,000 that it is this year, which itself is nearly double what we paid the year before. So we're really under the gun on that, and I think that's something people have to think about. Thank you, by the way, for showing up.
Speak to your ambulance, Bristol's planning on putting a third ambulance in service next year.
Harold says that Bristol's planning on putting a third ambulance in service next year. And I guess that's why the costs are going up. We know they put up that new public safety building, good for them. I don't want to begrudge anybody any improvements, but the costs for a little town like Hill, I don't see us paying it. I don't know how we will.
Well, I think we're all concerned about the ambulance cost. That's certainly an issue that we'll have to work on. I can speak for the ambulance crew in Bristol. It's quite a while ago, it was 24 years ago, but they scraped me up off of the road. So it was February 14th of 2001, and I was coming home. We had freezing rain that night, the roads were all shut down, and they were opening up little stretches. It's a long story, but my car broke down. I think the distributor got wet and it broke down on the hill coming out of Bristol. And Barry Wingate was the police chief at the time in Bristol, and he pulled over to help me. We were standing between the two cars talking, and another car came down the hill, slammed into my car, and scooped me up, slammed me into the cruiser, broke my femur bones. I had internal injuries and spent 4 months in the hospital. I had to learn to walk again. But the ambulance crew was there within about 2 minutes from the time that Barry called for assistance. They were there within 2 minutes. And they scraped me up off the road, put me in the bus, and brought me